Hi everyone, this is Eric Bond, the founder of Beat the GMAT, and welcome to today's session, which is called What You Need to Know, Applying to Columbia Early Decision. Before we even begin this session, I just want to give you all a virtual pat on the back for attending today to learn about early decision for Columbia. We are way early in the admissions process. Well, maybe I shouldn't say way early, but we're fairly early in the admissions process, and the fact that you're here today to get prepared for this important submission deadline is really great and already says a lot about your preparedness for this coming season. So good for you. Today we have a really great guest. We're going to be joined by Dina Merowitz, who is one of the top admissions consultants at ClearAdmit, which we all know is an elite MBA admissions consulting firm. A couple points about Dina's background. So she is uniquely qualified to speak about the Columbia early decision and Columbia admissions process because she is a former associate director of admissions at Columbia Business School. So she's done it all. She's reviewed applications, she's conducted interviews, she's participated in admissions decisions. So she really understands from the inside what it takes to get into this top business school. Dina has a lot of experience in education. She's been in the space since 1997, has worked on education issues as a legislative council member in Congress, and holds a JD JD as well as a master's in social work from University of Connecticut, as well as an undergraduate degree from Mount Holyoke. So someone who's intimately knowledgeable about education, admissions, and has the track record as well from her own educational past. So before I turn it over to Dina in just a moment, a quick word about the format for today's session. So Dina will go through her presentation about getting into Columbia early in just a moment. If you have questions along the way, feel free to post them in the chat window you should see on the right-hand side of your screen on this GoToMeeting platform. We'll be collecting your questions throughout this presentation, and at the end of the presentation, we're going to reserve about 10 or 15 minutes for Dina to go through and answer some of your questions. So don't hesitate to write to us through that chat window. That being said, I'm going to hand it over to Dina right now. And Dina, thank you so much for joining us this evening to talk about Columbia Early Decision.
Oh, thank you so much. And we really appreciate the opportunity to be with Beat the GMAT. I'm happy to talk with everybody here about what they need to know about applying to Columbia Early Decision. And just a little background before I start. I work for ClearAdmit. I've been working for them for 7 years, and ClearAdmit is an elite MBA consulting firm that really guides applicants through every aspect of the admissions process. So really from everything from a very thorough assessment of your profile to directing you on your resume, your essays, helping with mock interviews, reviewing applications, helping you choose the best recommenders, working with you on your resume. We really try to help applicants work either sort of comprehensively through a package with us covering everything, or sort of a la carte in any areas that they need. And we really are leaders in the field of graduate admissions consulting. The founders of ClearAdmit were founders of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, which really promotes the highest ethical standards in the business of graduate admissions consulting. And we are all also members, at ClearAdmit, we're all also members of that organization. You may have seen us in the Wall Street Journal, in Forbes, The Economist, Business Week, and other top publications. And of course on Beat the GMAT, where I post on the forum and on School Watch. So we're happy to really be here with Beat the GMAT today. As Eric mentioned, I am a senior admissions counselor with ClearAdmit, and I've been in the admissions space for 8 years. And I am a former associate director of admissions from Columbia Business School. And so, you know, feel free after you listen to our presentation here, my presentation here, you can also go back and read some posts that I've posted on the School Watch thread for Columbia on Beat the GMAT. Okay, so today what I'm going to cover is basically a lot of information for you about Columbia, what the program is like, what it's like to be a member of the community there, an overview of admissions, and really what goes on in terms of the process, what you do as an applicant, what you should be thinking about as an applicant, and also what goes on inside the admissions office. Then I'm going to really focus specifically on the early decision program admissions considerations and how that's different from the regular decision program. And then I'll talk a little bit about the essays that were just posted not too long ago for Columbia, and which are available on the Columbia website, and which ClearAdmit has posted or will be posting on our essay analysis. So anyway, here's a little look into all of that. So basic information about Columbia. Everybody sort of knows that Columbia is right there in New York City, and this is a big piece of what Columbia offers, because when you are a member of the Columbia community, you are really using New York City as your extended campus. So no matter what area of business you're focusing on, you really have access to it. It's just sort of a subway ride away. Of course, with Wall Street being very close in the city, it's very well known for its finance program, but it also has real strengths in other areas, including real estate, entrepreneurship, social enterprise, value investing. You may know about special programs that they offer, including the Chazen Institute, which really focuses on international business, the Eugene Lang Center, and the real estate program. So these are all things to do a little bit more research on, of course, if you're interested in Columbia's program, because there is a much broader offering of areas of study than finance, which is what really people think of, I think, first when they think of Columbia. The Columbia full-time program is about 550 students, and then the January term program, which is also a full-time program, is about 200 students. Now, that's a different program, and I just want to explain the difference because this comes up a lot. When you apply to the January term program, you are actually starting the January after the class has started in August. So you are starting the subsequent January, and your classmates have started in August. And you, as a J-term student or accelerated program student, will continue from January all the way through the summer, and whereas your peers, your full-time program peers for the regular decision and early decision program will be taking a summer internship, you will be taking classwork and at school during that summer period. So there is no internship opportunity for January term students, and for some students this makes it really ideal because it's specifically tailored to students that don't need that internship experience. And that means those who plan to return to an industry that they're already familiar with, that they have strong connections to, or those who are returning to a family business, for example. The January term program is really an ideal program for them. So I just want to make that distinction. One of the things about Columbia, and you really feel it as soon as you're on campus there, is that it is a very diverse place, and it's a very, very active place. One of the things that people used to ask me in the admissions office was really like, how do you balance all of this as a student here? Because students are really involved in extracurricular life as well as their academic life. And because you're in New York City in this incredibly vibrant place, there's a lot of balancing to do between your classwork, the incredible organizations that really cater to the common interests of students there, the extracurricular activities, and then the city itself. So it's a very exciting, engaging place. And Columbia admissions is it's very specific to Columbia. Of course, there are things that you really want to do ahead of time. It's great that you're finding out about these things now. And even though Eric mentioned you guys all deserve a pat on the back because the deadlines aren't until October, you know what? Columbia doesn't use rounds, and so you really don't want to think about that deadline as being your actual deadline. You really want to think about the fact that Columbia has rolling admissions, and you want to find out as much information sort of as early on in the process as you can. So what's really important, if you can, it's all possible to really visit campus. As soon as you come to campus and you come to the admissions office, you can speak with an admissions officer at any point. You can do an information session. You can tour the campus. It's really easy to attend classes, and there are programs that are set up through the admissions office to make things, easy and smooth for you as a visitor, as a prospective student. There's a host program there that allows you to shadow a first-year student for part of the day, and so not only would you go to classes, but you'd also sort of be in the mix of what they're doing in between, when they're going to club and organization meetings, when they're eating, when they're trying to balance everything in their life during that part of their day. You'll see how exciting it really is. Another important part of Columbia's admissions process is the Hermes Society, and that is really the student arm of the admissions office and can serve as a great point of contact for prospective students, in that you can reach out to Hermes students, and you can ask to talk to somebody who has a similar work background, who has a similar interest that you do, is from the same country in terms of if you're an international applicant. And it can really be a great connection for you to make to the admissions office. And Hermes students, know everything not only about their experience there as students, but also about admissions. So it's a really wonderful resource, and I think that it makes sense to really look into that aspect of the admissions process for prospective students. As I mentioned, Columbia offers 3 different options for full-time applicants: the January term program, which I mentioned, the regular decision program, and then the early decision program. And these are just the January term program is obviously a slightly different program in that you don't have that internship experience, but the regular decision and early decision program are obviously both for the same time period. But they are different in terms of admissions, and it's really important to understand the differences between regular decision at Columbia and early decision. And just, as I mentioned, admissions is rolling at Columbia. There are no rounds like there are in other schools. There's no round 1, round 2, round 3. And so what this means is that from the day that the admissions office begins reading applications, spots in the class fill. So it becomes more and more competitive as time goes on. And so that's why it's great to be as early as possible in this process and to think about getting your application in much earlier rather than later. Okay. So all of you who are listening to me are probably thinking about applying to Columbia Early Decision, or maybe just finding out more. And here are some things to think about in order to determine whether or not you should be applying to Columbia Early Decision. Really, the program is for applicants who absolutely know that Columbia is their first choice, and if they are accepted, they will attend. And that's very clear in the way that Columbia talks about the program. And it's, an important consideration. So you really, when you apply, you are signing a statement that says that you will withdraw other applications if you're accepted, and that you will put down a deposit and attend. This program is only really available for September start, and the advantage to applying early decision is that because Columbia knows that if you are applying early decision, it is your first choice, it's able to get a sense of what the class is going to look like earlier in the process. And so, therefore, they can be slightly more flexible about the process earlier in the cycle. So they can let you know earlier that you're accepted, and they also will be able to have a sense of what their class looks like. And that's really one of the most important jobs in the admissions office is to make sure that our class is well-rounded, that it's diverse, that we have people from different backgrounds, different work backgrounds. And so this allows Columbia to start to determine that earlier, and it allows you to know if you're accepted. Now, you may not be accepted early decision always, but you can then be bounced sometimes into the regular decision process. If you're bounced from early decision to regular decision, it happens occasionally, then you're no longer bound to that agreement that you will attend if you're admitted. Then you're reviewed as a regular decision applicant. But, you know, admissions odds are slightly higher for early decision than they are for regular decision. And, you know, of course it does happen. You know, it's frowned upon, but it does happen that sometimes people will apply to Columbia Early Decision. They will be accepted to Columbia Early Decision, and for some reason they will not be able to attend. You know, this is not something that you know, the admissions office likes to see. It interrupts the or it changes the balance of the class, and so it's really important to think about that. You need to know when you apply that Columbia is where you want to be. Now, the ED deadline for Columbia is October 3rd, but the admissions office has posted their application essays on the website, and they are accepting applications. Now, they are accepting applications right now first for January term. January term applicants will be reviewed first, and then early decision applicants, and after that, regular decision applicants. But it is good to think about all of this. I can't stress it enough early. So what's your job as an early decision applicant? Research, research, research. The more that you can show that you know about Columbia and you know why Columbia is a good fit for you, that's the best possible thing that you can do and that you can convey to the admissions office. So they want to know that you are interested in specific classes, that there's specific professors and programs that make sense to you. Again, whether it's the Chazen Institute, or you want to do social enterprise, or you're interested in the greenhouse competition, you want to make sure that you can talk about why your background is a fit for Columbia in terms of what you need to get from Columbia to get to your short and then your long-term goal. And you also want to convey what clubs, organizations you'll be part of on campus. Again, they have this incredibly vibrant community, and they're going to need leaders to keep those clubs and organizations running. So you want to convey how not only you'll be involved academically in the class, and you know what your work experience is and what your work goals are, but also how you'll be part of the campus community. So how will you contribute to the community both academically and through your outside interests? Why is Columbia specifically a good fit for your career goals? What makes it stand out for you? What is it that Columbia offers and that makes it the place that you need to be for your MBA? And you know, obviously, it's the more you can do to be specific with that. Visiting campus is a great way to do it, to contact Columbia students, to make a connection to the admissions office, to ask questions, to show them that you're a good fit. You want to convey that, obviously, through every aspect of your application. Okay. So what happens in the admissions office after you've sent in your application? You've worked hard on your essays, you've got your recommendations done, you've completed your resume. Well, your application comes into the admissions office and it's numbered once it's received, and it will be reviewed in the order that it's received. And usually your application is read by several people who will take notes on your application essays, your profile, your academic background, your work interest, your work experience, and your extracurriculars. And they will look at how well you've thought out your career goals and path, and how well you've argued the fit of the program, and why you need an MBA at this point in your career, so that why now MBA piece. And often your application will be reviewed. Well, your application will always be reviewed by more than one person on the admissions committee, but sometimes an application, when it comes in, can immediately, by the first reader, can be recommended for an interview, which is the next part of the process. Other times, applications will go to several readers, and they may go back and forth as to whether or not an applicant should be granted an interview invite. And if you are granted an interview invite, you are given a list of 3 alumni interviews in your area. And really, for Columbia, most applicants are interviewed. It's another component of the admissions process, but it's also a good sign because, you know, you've made it past a review of your application overall. And so it means that your application, you know, met certain standard, and now they want to talk to you. So it is always a good sign, and most people who are accepted are interviewed. So the way that works is that you're given a list of 3 alumni interviews in your area, and generally the alumni interviews are given questions are done. There's a lot of training that's done with the alumni, and they're obviously former students who are really also incredibly interested in Columbia as their alma mater, that are very devoted to the school, and that feel, you know, very committed to the program. So they will interview you. Your interview will be blind, which means that the interviewer generally will not have read your application. They may sometimes ask specific questions that an AdCom member has specifically communicated to them that they want to know more about in terms of your profile. But really all that they'll have in general is your resume, and they will talk to you about you know, really what your reasons are for Columbia and explain, you know, answer questions that you have about Columbia. Then the interview report is sent to the admissions office from the interviewer, and your decision will be rendered. Now, hopefully that happens within 12 weeks, and I always see posts on, you know, questions about Columbia about, oh my gosh, I haven't heard yet. You know, I had my interview, but I still haven't heard, or I submitted my application and my status is under review, but I haven't heard. Does that mean something's bad? Well, no, it really doesn't. You know, your decision could be rendered at any time in the process. It could be 12 weeks. It could be longer. And really, I know it's hard to think about it from the perspective sometimes of an applicant, but so much is going on in the admissions office that, you know, there is travel, there are meetings, there are, you know, making sure that the mission of the school is conveyed through the admissions office, that, you know, applications, it takes a long time to process them, and it does not reflect on the quality of a particular applicant, you know, in terms of how long it might take to either receive an interview or an offer for acceptance. So I just want to say that because I know it's extremely anxiety-producing time. So next here, you know, and really sort of what I want to talk a little bit about is what is Columbia looking for from you in terms of your essay analysis, in terms of what you want to convey to them in your essays. So Columbia has just released, as I mentioned, their essays for this year, and they're slightly different than last year's, but they still focus on the same components, very similar components. They're slightly shorter, but they really are interested in learning about your career goals and your personal experiences and who you are and how you can contribute to the community. So the first essay is, why are you pursuing an MBA at this point in your career? How do you plan to achieve your immediate and long-term professional goals? And, you know, I think this is really a very standard kind of career goals essay is what we call it. And so what you want to do is to be very concise and clear, and they've given you word limits here, about what your short-term goals are, meaning your goals right after business school, and your long-term goals are, you know, sort of what your vision is for the future 5 or 10 years on down the line, and why applicants feel that this really is the right time now to go to business school. So you want to talk about the skills and knowledge that you have now, combined with what you specifically need from Columbia right now, and that means you know, what you want to gain from them, what skills and knowledge you want to gain to get to your short-term goal post-MBA and then your longer-term goal post-MBA. And you want to talk about how this is a natural breaking point for you in your career, why it makes sense for you to go back to business school now, and how attending Columbia is really the best way for you to advance your professional goals. SAB is really, this is a new part, viewing the video, which is the community at Columbia. And you'll notice that I've really stressed how important the community is at Columbia. But this question is asking you specifically about why you're interested in becoming part of the Columbia community. And it's after you view a video that talks about, you know, the organizations at Columbia and what life is really like there. So in order to answer this question, really what you want to think about is convincing Columbia about school-specific details, and this means doing research on the clubs and organizations that really connect to your interests outside of your professional life, and talking about them in your essay, and talking about how you'll enrich the community there. What clubs will you be part of? What will you lead? How will you engage on campus in the community? What special programs will you want to be involved with? And so it's really, really helpful here. We offer at Clear-Admit a great guide, a school guide that can sort of gives you a sense of all the different activities going on campus, and the website as well. And of course, visiting is another great way to find out about what's going on at Columbia. But this is just another sign that this is a really, really important part of your application and an important part of your review. And then the second essay is describe a personal experience and how it has influenced who you are today. This essay should have a personal rather than professional focus. And again, really what they want to know is they don't want to hear about your professional life here, but they really want to hear more about a life experience, how that was important to you, but really how it's shaped who you are today. So you can draw from your background in terms of your academics, your extracurricular, your personal history, but it should focus, even if the event or your history took place when you were much younger, you want the essay's focus to be defining really who you are today, and talk about your personal characteristics, information about you that the admissions committee isn't going to know about from your other prior essays, from essay 1A or B. So, could be your strong work ethic. It could be difficult socioeconomic circumstances. It could be, the way that you grew up and the way that you learned about being a particularly open-minded person, how you adapt. These things are things that the admissions committee wants to know about you, and so you want to really pose them, so show how you've been shaped in a positive way to demonstrate your maturity, your strength, and basically your valuable contribution, what you can make to the Columbia community. And then there is a short answer question here, which is, what is your immediate post-MBA professional goal? And that is an important piece, and you've already sort of talked about that in a more lengthy way in Essay 1. But it really asks applicants to speak directly about the job that you wish to have when you graduate from business school. And it's only 200 characters, so you want to be very clear and concise about your short-term goal, and make sure that it aligns with what you've written in Part A of Essay 1. So that is some essay analysis for Columbia. Basically, Columbia's early decision option is a great tool for applicants that know that Columbia is their first choice and who want to find out about their admissions early in the admissions process. So you will know, generally, if you're accepted, you'll know much earlier in the process than your peers were applying to rounds. And this is a benefit to you, and Columbia thinks it's a benefit to you, and they also, it's a benefit to them. And it's really key to apply early in the application process, not to wait to the deadline, and again, to convey your fit with Columbia through, all the research you can do, the visits, and your essays. So, I just want to sort of briefly mention that there's a lot of resources for you available through Clear-Admit, through our blog, and through our wiki. We offer, as I mentioned, advice for every aspect, in every step of the admissions process, and we also have a series of publications that you can purchase through our shop online in terms of strategy, school guides, interview guides, career guides, and school snapshots, which are short summaries of each school. So finally, feel free to email me your resume for a free assessment of your candidacy, and my email address is up there. And you are entitled, after viewing this video seminar, for a discount on our services. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with, or we've been hearing from Dina Mirowitz, who is a former admissions officer at Columbia, and she's been describing some strategies and thoughts around applying to Columbia Early Decision. Dina, thank you so much for this great presentation, and we actually have a number of great questions that have come in. But before we actually jump into having Dina answer some of these questions live, I just want to reiterate that these new snapshots that Dina had mentioned are free. So, and they're different from the school guides. So definitely take advantage of these free snapshots that ClearMist put together because they're really great. So Dina, if it's cool with you, why don't we go into a couple of questions at this point?
Sounds great.
Okay. So let me see here. We have a first question from Paul. And Paul's question is there such a thing as submitting an early decision application too early?
It's a great question. I say that the best thing to do is to call the admissions office and ask when they're going to be reviewing early decision applications. Generally, that's in July. And so because they are reviewing January term applications generally first. It's a great question to ask the admissions office. I would say that you should be thinking about applying in July, but if you apply a little bit earlier, that's fine. You want to apply early in the process, but you also want to give yourself enough time to make sure that your application, obviously, is in perfect shape. So you shouldn't rush it, but you should apply much earlier than the deadline.
Related to that, Robert asked a sort of similar question, which was, is there advantage to submit well before the deadline?
To well before the deadline, yes, absolutely. Just like I was saying, because admissions is rolling, from the point when they begin reading applications, and that doesn't mean the day that, necessarily the applications are up, since they're reading January term applications first, but really the day that they begin reading applications is closer to when you should be applying. You definitely don't want to apply towards the deadline because many spots in the class have been filled by then, and it becomes more and more competitive.
Great. And just a reminder to folks out there, if you have questions for Dina, we will be having Dina answer as many of your questions live during this session, so feel free to keep sending those in and we'll do our best to address them. And also, if we don't have time to address your question, Dina mentioned this at the top of her session, that she is actively participating in the Ask ClearAdmit forum in the Beat the GMAT forum, so you can pose your questions there as well. This next question is coming from Angie. Angie asks, how does Columbia view older students, those who are over 30 years old?
Well, you know what? I think you should think about how well you can fit into the community. When you think about an older student, really the concern from the admissions office is this person going to really be able to fit in? Are they going to be able to engage with their peers? Are they going to be able to take advantage of all the opportunities on campus? And so as long as you can demonstrate that, that's great. It's okay to be a little bit older. Certainly 30 is a great age to be going to business school, and it's completely fine to apply to business school when you're 30 or a little bit older, but what you want to do is to show that, yes, I understand some of my peers may be younger, but let me tell you, I'm active and I'm engaged, and here's how I'm going to participate on campus.
Hey, Angie, I'm 32, but they say 30 is the new 20, so don't worry about it too much.
And you know what else is that you want to talk about, how your experience, how that's going to contribute to the class as well, like that you have a little bit more work experience, a little bit more life experience. Talk about that as a positive.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm 45. It's the new 25.
That's right. That's the right attitude to have, Dina. We have a question from Ramiro. And Ramiro is asking whether you have any insider knowledge about whether the acceptance rate for early decision is different from the general admission. So do you know what the acceptance rate is for early decision? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't, but I will tell you that, as I mentioned in the presentation, it's the best way to apply to Columbia if you know that it's the program for you, because they can afford to be a bit more flexible about admissions, knowing that everyone that they make an offer to is going to attend. So it's absolutely to your advantage in terms of the admissions rate and the level of competitiveness to apply to Columbia Early Decision if you know that it's where you want to be.
This is a very interesting, nuanced question from, my apologies if I mispronounce this, Masi Miliano, cool name. Are all the applications sent before the 3rd of October considered early decision?
You have to specify when you apply.
Mm-hmm.
You have to specify what term you're applying for. So it has to be clear on your application. It doesn't automatically become early decision because you've applied by a certain date.
Gotcha. So Massimiliano, hopefully that clarifies that. Let's see. So another question, and so many great questions, by the way. So to our audience members out there today, I see over 100 people here right now. Thank you so much for being so actively engaged and sending us so many really thoughtful questions. I see one coming in from Trang. Trang is saying, you said that most applicants would be interviewed. What is the percentage of applicants interviewed?
You know, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's quite high, so that there is a, if you receive an interview invite, that it's a really good sign that
Mm-hmm.
you've definitely met a certain benchmark for your application, and that, you should know that because everyone or most admitted students are interviewed, that it's really a very good sign to get an interview. And once you receive an interview invite, you should feel pretty good about your chances.
Great. So my apologies for the delay. I'm still sorting through a number of these great questions. It's hard to pick a question.
I just want to add to that and say, that doesn't mean that when you get that interview invite, you can say, phew, it's through. It means that you really then have to prepare for that interview and do, a very good job at conveying your enthusiasm and your interest and your fit to Columbia. But it is a positive sign, and you should feel, really good about what you've accomplished if you receive an interview invite.
Right. It's more of a milestone towards the ultimate admissions goal, but so you can't just rest your laurels. Yeah, at that point. Okay, Robert is asking a question. Are alumni interviews the only option? That's the part one of his question. And then the second part is, how does Columbia handle deployed military?
Oh, great question. Well, generally admissions interviews are through alumni, and I think that's generally what the admissions office will say. There are certain times when you may be called back to the admissions office for a second interview. That's not completely unheard of for some follow-up. But generally you do begin with an alumni interview. And then in very unusual cases, you could have a second interview. In terms of deployed military, I guess I'd want to know more about what he means in terms of admissions. But it's obviously, when you have military experience, admissions committees and Columbia certainly, they really consider that as a very valuable experience because it means that you have strong leadership skills, that you're very committed, that you're directed, that you work well on a team. So military experience overall is looked on very positively in the admissions process.
Wonderful. And Robert, thank you so much for your service. Here is a question this is a very big theme we're seeing from questions, a number of people who are here in this session today. So, Dina, as you know, we have a diverse set of people who come to Beat the GMAT from all parts of the world. And generally the questions being asked is, how does Columbia view international students? Do you have any special tips for international applicants in this process?
Well, Columbia is a really international place, so they seek to attract international students, and international students are, really considered a very valuable part of the application process, obviously. So, it's something that, again, is an advantage in terms of what you can bring because of your experience as an international student to the community, both in terms of, your classwork and who you are outside of that, your culture and what you might participate in outside of classes.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. I like this question. I think this is, let me try to pronounce this, from Balaji. Balaji and a couple other folks are asking, can you please comment about any specific advice you may have for reapplicants.
Yeah, reapplicants. Well, when you apply as a reapplicant, you really only need to do one reapplicant essay, and you submit an additional recommendation. And, I think it's really important to show how you've changed since the last time you applied. So you want to think about this in terms of being a reapplicant. You want to think about not only how you've changed in terms of maybe what additional work experience you've gained, but really what else you've done in your life outside of your work, what community service you might have done since then, have you retaken your GMAT. The admissions committee wants to know, really, okay, we're going to review your application and we're happy to review it again, but tell us how you're different from last time.
And just a reminder to folks, in case you arrived really late to this session, we're speaking with Dina Merowitz, who is a former admissions officer at Columbia Business School, and she's providing some advice about early decision for this year, and also, of course, is a top expert with ClearAdmit, and she's answering your questions. Dina, I know we said 15 minutes for Q&A, but there are just so many great questions. Do you think it'd be all right if you stick around for about 10 more minutes?
That's totally fine. That's
okay.
Great.
Great. Well, to our audience, again, thank you for these great questions, and keep them coming. We'll try to get as many of them answered while we have Dina on the line here. Let's see. A question from okay. This is an interesting question from Finn. Finn is asking, does early decision have a special advantage for international students? So, I mean, what's your perspective of early decision being an advantage or important signal for folks who are applying from abroad? Is that the case?
Well, I don't think that applicants who are applying from abroad are at any disadvantage. So I don't think that there's any specific advantage. But I do think that they certainly, a foreign applicant should or international applicant, you should never be discouraged from applying early decision. You certainly are going to be considered right along with every other applicant. And Columbia is a very international community, so your experience and your background is going to be valued.
Another international, well, actually not quite an international question. This one's from Minsuk, asking about, are scores such as GMAT and TOEFL more important for early decision than regular decision? Do these standardized tests have even more weight in ED rounds?
Your GMAT and your TOEFL scores there are important. They're important criteria in terms of admissions review. Obviously, there are a lot of other components of your application that are reviewed. But as I mentioned earlier, when you apply early decision, there is a little bit more flexibility in terms of your scores or your grades or other aspects of your application than there would be in regular decision, because again, it helps Columbia to create their class a little bit earlier. So there is more flexibility in terms of scores rather than less, I think, in early decision.
I have a question about standardized test scores too, and I just want to get this validated. What about the weight of standardized test scores when you're a younger applicant versus an older applicant?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Look, I mean, your GMAT score for many applicants, your GMAT score is it's evidence of your strong quantitative skills for many people and verbal skills. And your quantitative strengths are a really important part of the admissions process because every admissions office, Columbia wants to know that you're going to be able to handle the rigors of the first-year curriculum, which is very strongly quantitatively based. So when you are an applicant who has less work experience, maybe you have less quantitatively based work experience, your GMAT score might matter more than if you can demonstrate your strengths, your quantitative strengths through the work that you do or in other ways through classes that you've taken. So, the more experience you have in quantitative areas, the more you can balance a slightly lower GMAT score. And that might be if you're an applicant who has more work experience.
Great. Questions coming in from Roberta, and this is very specific to the essays. In essay one, do we choose between essay A or B, or do we have to write both those essays?
Um, those are two essays, so they're two separate pieces here. They're not asking you to choose one. They're giving you two separate parts of the essay.
Gotcha. Another question about the essay questions from Saurin. Saurin is asking, for essay 2, do we have to only discuss one personal event and experience, or could it be more than one?
They're asking for one personal experience, a personal experience. I would try to stick to one compelling story, one experience, as opposed to sort of spreading it too thin. Look, that's sort of what Clearbit can help you with is advise you, like, here's one that we think, really helps you express your strengths, your characteristics in the best way. But I don't think, if they're asking you for one specific experience, then I would not offer more than one, unless there was some really compelling reason why you needed to talk about more.
Right. And Dean, if I can jump on my soapbox about this, I have a response too, which is, so I've never been an admissions officer myself, but every year BCGMAT does host an annual scholarship where hundreds of people write essay responses to some essay questions we post in order to earn the scholarship. And one of my biggest pet peeves actually is reading an essay response where someone didn't follow the directions completely, or I say, cite one thing and they cite more than one thing. And I can't speak for what Dina's experiences was, but I can imagine when you're an admissions officer reading thousands of these entries, these application entries, following the directions is something that at least a good portion of those folks are going to really care about. So
I also would just add that there's a lot of thought and consideration that goes into creating these essay questions.
Right.
So if the admissions committee was interested in learning about your experiences as opposed to one particular experience, they would have been clear about that in the essay prompt itself. So that's why, unless there's some very unusual, compelling reason why you have to connect it to more than one experience, I would really be very clear about responding to what the essay prompt is asking for. What information are they asking you?
Along with the point I was making about following instructions, Dina, I'd just love to get your personal experience about word counts. So how did you view people that went a little bit over the word count, or even a lot over the word count?
A little bit over is fine. A lot over, again, is sort of like, we've given you these word counts to sort of keep in mind how much information we're looking for, and we are asking you to be concise and clear in your writing and to really be thoughtful about what information you're presenting to us. So if you are a little bit over, okay, but if you are a lot over and we have to read a lot more information than we've asked for, then it can, absolutely reflect negatively on your application.
Right.
Those word limits are again, they're another part of the application process that's well thought out. So you don't have to worry about whether you're going one word over, but you should stay within 10% generally of what the admissions essay limits are.
Really great advice. So moving away from essays, Josh is asking how valuable is volunteering experience, like mentoring or tutoring for underprivileged youth, for example? Does volunteer experience play an important part in your admissions?
Yeah, well, so I would ask Josh, how important is it to you in your life? I think what Columbia really wants to see is students who are engaged in the community before they attend, and then students who are going to be engaged when they're on campus. And so they want to see applicants who are involved in their own lives, that follow their passion, that volunteer, that have interesting hobbies and interests and skills. So it's not something that you should do just for the admissions process. It's something that you should do to sort of enrich yourself so that you become a more valuable person, to the community once you're there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Abhishek is asking a pretty cool question, which is, my girlfriend is going to Columbia School of Social Work, and I am also considering Columbia for my MBA. Is this something worth mentioning in the application somewhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, You know, generally it's helpful if the admissions office knows that your, fiance or a spouse is in one of the programs on campus, because then that will give them a sense that you also really may be committed to going to that program. So if this is a very serious, relationship, a fiance or a spouse, and they also plan to be attending Columbia, then it is definitely a good thing to be mentioning in your application.
Right, right. Very good. Lots of great questions. I love it. So I'm going to try to pronounce this name probably incorrectly. Abyssinia is asking, do you have any special advice for career changers application? So what strategies would you recommend, Dina, for career changers?
Well, so it's a great question too. When you're a career changer, you've obviously thought about, you've had some work experience that you found valuable in some way, because now you know that this is not what you want to do when you get out of business school. So you want to be clear when you talk about your goals and your background and your application. Talk about the knowledge and skills that you have now. What did you learn from, what knowledge and skills have you gained from your current position? What do you know now about yourself that you didn't know before? And then how will those skills and how will that knowledge apply to what you know about what you want to do after business school? So how will those how will that information that you know about yourself now, combined with what you get from Columbia, how will that get you to your next job? So you want to talk about how they're valuable to you in terms of what you know that you don't want to do, and also what you know now that you do want to do.
Many people have been posing this question to us in some form, which was, do you think it's helpful to create an alternative transcript? That is, should I take online courses or take courses from a local community college? What are your thoughts on these kinds of alternative transcripts?
Alternative transcript can be useful if there's a weakness in your academic background. If you have a GMAT that's low, then it can be helpful to show that you're taking quantitatively based classes and getting an A in them, to show that you do have those quantitative skills. It's not necessary if you have strong quantitative skills in your background, but if there are weaknesses, then it is a good idea to take a class where you can really show that you have that strength, even if it isn't reflected somewhere either in your undergraduate academics or your GMAT.
Do you think that online courses carry the same weight as traditional local community college or even college courses?
I think they absolutely can. You can take very rigorous online classes through, I think Berkeley has some strong online classes, University of California. I think there's a math program online that you can contact me about that offers a great online quantitative class. So they can be, yes.
Great. Well, Dina, I think we have time for just two more questions, and then unfortunately we're going to have to wrap this session for today because we're getting to the close of our hour. But thank you so much, by the way, for this wonderful Q&A. This has been very helpful for our audience.
Oh, great.
Jessica, I feel for you, Jessica. This is a great question. Columbia is my first choice, but I'm concerned about the cost, and several other MBA programs have already contacted me about fellowships or supplementary aid. Is there any way to find out the details of the financial aid package I would receive from Columbia or would be likely to receive ahead of time?
Well, I would say there's no way to know what your financial aid package will be from Columbia. It's great that other schools are contacting you. This is a real, you should be really pleased about your performance so far if that's happening, because it really shows that you're going to be a valued applicant. I would say that you should call the career services. You should call the financial aid office at Columbia and talk to them and see what kind of information they can give you. There are no guarantees in this process, but it would definitely be worth calling and talking with somebody there, or if you're in the New York area, to go in and meet with somebody in the financial aid office and ask them specifically these questions. And
I think that the final question for this evening is going to come from Lydia. Lydia is saying, is asking, could you comment on the role of recommendations? Where do they stand in the criteria hierarchy of your total admissions package?
Well, they're one of the facets of your application. They are very important because they give a sense of who you are in the workplace, what your strengths and weaknesses are, how well you recognize those strengths, and really what you're like to be around in work experience. So they're important. Generally speaking, your recommendations should come from a current supervisor and a former supervisor. They should be people who know you very well, not somebody necessarily who has maybe a fancy name or a very high position in your company, but really somebody who can work with you directly and speak anecdotally about the work that you've done for them and how you compare to your peers. And they are a very compelling piece of your application process.
And with that, I think we're going to have to close it off for today's session, Dina. Thank you so much for walking us through this presentation and taking our questions.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity, again, to talk with you. And again, I hope that all of you will take a look at our offerings on our ClearAdmit site. The school snapshots are just fabulous. They're free. We also have a free downloadable GMAT guide. And there's just a lot of information that you can get from us. And anybody who's interested in talking with one of our ClearAdmit counselors, please email me at dina@clearadmit.com or info@clearadmit.com, and somebody will get right back in touch with you.
Wonderful.
Thanks again to Beat the GMAT for this.
Thank you, Dina. So Dina Merowitz is an admissions consultant with ClearAdmit, one of the elite consulting firms in this space, as well as a former admissions officer with Columbia Business School. She just walked us through this great presentation on some strategies for getting into Columbia through the early decision. Hopefully you guys took a lot of great notes, and we will try to have a recording of the session in the next 24 hours on our YouTube channel. We'll send you an email with instructions on how to do that. Just to reiterate, Dina did put her email right there on the slide, D-E-E-N-A, dina@clearadmit.com. Definitely reach out to her if you're interested in getting a free initial assessment or learning about the 10% discount on services that ClearAdmit is offering to people who came to this session. That's very generous of them. And one more just quick plug. If you're planning to apply to Columbia this fall or this coming season, highly recommend that you check out the Columbia MBA Watch page that we have. You can go to mbawatch.com and just search for Columbia. I see that last year 872 people from the Beat the GMAT community had applied to Columbia and reported their own stats on the Columbia MBA Watch page, and 49 have so far reported that they've been accepted and are going to be attending Columbia. So check it out. It's a great resource for folks as they go into the admission season. Follow the Columbia Business School program on MBA Watch by going to mbawatch.com, search for Columbia, and hit that blue follow button. So for those of you who joined us tonight or this morning, depending on where you are, thank you so much for coming, and best of luck to you as you make this important move in your career and in your life to apply early decision for Columbia. All the best, guys.